but they face a monumental challenge ahead. What does the path forward look like for Northwestern football?
Right. Yeah, I think the question is how long will it take to kind of get on stable footing? This is a team that, like you said, won one game last year, is not projected to do very well this season. Certainly could have raised the question, independent of all of this, whether Fitz was going to survive for the 2024 season. But I think there's a lot of like doom and gloom projections when something like this happens. Northwestern won't be right for 30 years, or we'll never hear from them again. We both know that if you make the right coaching hire and you have the right support around that coach, you can turn it around in this sport relatively quickly. Now you're going to turn it around to the level that Northwestern was at from, say, 2008 to 2020, when they were consistently winning 7 to 9 games, sometimes more, 5 top 25 finishes, 2 division titles. That's probably asking a lot, but I think you can turn it around to respectability, and certainly play off the fact that it's still a Big Ten job. It's a Big Ten job where, you don't have to win championships to keep your job. It's certainly a strong quality of life. A lot of coaches who have lived or have worked at Northwestern say it was one of their favorite stops just because of the area. So those are things you have to sell. Now, there's major administrative questions. Is Derek Gragg going to remain the athletic director? What does the alumni support look like? How fractured is the fan base and the alumni base? What's going to happen with Ryan Field? Is Ryan Field still going to be built and that $800 million project seen through, so to speak? So that's another question. So anyone who I think there are hard questions that any candidate or their representative should ask if they're pursuing this job. But I also think that a lot of candidates will consider this job because of some of those things I just mentioned.
Yeah, and it's the Big Ten. It's Big Ten, SEC. So even Vanderbilt can hire people. Stanford can hire. You know what I mean? Like there will be candidates for this job. So what kind of candidates do you think they can get, though, Adam? And what kind of candidates does Northwestern need right now?
Yeah, and that's I like that you asked it that way, Jeremy. I mean, I think that Northwestern certainly needs somebody, of impeccable character, integrity, who has never had any incidents in his background, either personally or with conduct of the team. And, that's hard. Some of these coaches have coached a long time, and not everyone's always going to be happy with them. And, anyone can make allegations. I mean, we saw that with the Northwestern situation. So I think that's important. I mean, will they look at people with ties to the university, given how long Fitz was there and how long some of these allegations supposedly occurred? You look at someone like Mike Kafka, who's an absolute rising star, the New York Giants offensive coordinator. He's a star quarterback at Northwestern. In 2009, he coached under Pat Fitzgerald as a young guy before he went to the NFL. If you could get him, I think a lot of Northwestern people would be thrilled. But is the optics of it questionable? Because, was Mike Kafka involved in this stuff when he was playing? We don't know. Or do you look at, I think if I were Northwestern, I certainly would look at head coaching experience, and I would look at people who have been at similar schools, and I would look at someone who might want to see this as their final stop. And 2 names to me come to mind in that category. One is Dave Clawson at Wake Forest, and the other is Willie Fritz at Tulane. Both are private schools. Both have limited recruiting bases. Both are academically oriented in nature, and both of those coaches have had great success at some tough programs. Dave was at Bowling Green. Willie Fritz was at Georgia Southern and various programs in and around Kansas. I mean, they understand tough jobs, and this is going to be a tough job. And both are older. I would go after guys like that. I mean, there's obviously other people you could consider, but I do think the fact bringing in somebody who has built programs, who has overcome some obstacles, and also has some things in their background that make them maybe a little unique schematically. The thing I like about Dave Clawson as a Northwestern candidate is that Wake Forest runs a different type of offense. It's unique if you watch it, and it gives them an edge when maybe they don't have the talent edge over their opponents. And I think that's something that Northwestern's certainly going to need going forward, because we don't know how they're going to build their roster, at least for a little while. So those are some of the things that I would look at. But I think above all, I mean, you've obviously been damaged, as Michael Schill said in his statement. The university, the program's been damaged. You can't afford further embarrassment. And so I think the vetting of somebody's background, how they've handled locker rooms and conduct incidents, all these coaches have seen something go on. I think that's going to be an important part of the interview process.